today we are having Anita Eipe ma'am on for our session. So let me give a short introduction about her. Anita Eipe is a managing trustee at Samta Learning Center, HSR Layout, Bangalore. She's a special education needs professional with an expertise and skills of working with children with special needs and has been in this field for over 25 years. Anita's expertise over the past years include establishing and developing inclusive and supportive environment for children with different abilities in mainstream environment. Anita Eipe has worked as an emotional well-being counselor for students and parents to make inclusion a possibility for all concerned. She has led the special needs department in international schools in Bangalore, Neve Academy, Neve Academy, Trio World School, and Inventure Academy. Then Anita also advocates early invention for the best impact and early inclusion for effective education for children with special needs. She believes that the society has a moral obligation and unset responsibility to include every individual to a productive member. She believes with the right approach and collaboration with all stakeholders, every child is capable of learning. So this is a short introduction about her. So for the rest of today's session, we'll come to know a lot about her, and I hand over the session to ma'am. Now you can take over.
Thank you very much, Tino. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm very happy that you have this platform where a lot of people can come to for help. I have a PPT to share. Shall I start, or do you want us to wait for a little while? Shall I start?
Ma'am, you can start. You can start.
Ma'am, if you could give us.
Can't hear you, Amal.
On mute, sir.
Can you hear us now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It'll be great if you could give us like a short introduction, maybe for
Right.
like 5 minutes before we start this. And then in the meanwhile, we're hoping that more people will also join in.
Yes, I'll do that. I'll go slow initially, and we can take it from there.
Right.
Yes. So it's a very interesting topic, and something that covers many areas. So today we are going to be talking about parenting, the child with special needs, and the unique, not so exciting situation that we all find ourselves in, which is the lockdown situation with this COVID pandemic. So yes, there are a lot of issues that are rolled into one, and I look forward to sharing some of the information that I have collected over the years. So this is me. I'm Anita Eipe. I run a school for children with special needs, which is here in HSR Bangalore. And if you wonder what gives me the authority to speak about parenting, and that parenting of children with special needs, I would say that one is the fact that, of course, I am a parent myself, and I have been in the education field for more than 25 years, from the mainstream education to a special needs teacher in the mainstream systems, and now as someone who's working exclusively with children with special needs. So as I understand from Amal that I will do a presentation, share some information, and if you have any questions, you could just make a note of them, and we could take that after I finish sharing. And if along the way, if you have any doubts or any questions about any of the terms that I use, or any information that I share, please feel free to ask me as we conclude the presentation. Amal, shall I start?
Yes, please, ma'am. We can go ahead. In the meanwhile, a couple of some more people have messaged me that they're just joining in.
Okay.
But we can get started.
Okay. I'll go slowly initially. Okay. So, what I'd like for all of us to keep our focus on is to continuously remember what it is that we know and we already do well, because that is what gives us confidence, and that is what defines our self-esteem. And that is very important to make sure that we have. It gives us courage to face whatever comes our way. And the second part is, it's important to understand what it is that you want to do, but don't know how to do. And this is where, this is what I would say is the reason why you are attending a seminar or a webinar or a talk, or reading up literature on things that you want to know more about. And the third part is, I would say right now the important one over here is to keep in mind and figure out what it is that you learned new today, and whether and if that's going to impact how you're going to do things differently too. So let us start with first identifying who we are. I would say you first are a person, and it's only after being a person, an individual, that you are a parent. And after that is when you can truly align with being a parent of a child with special needs. So let's address these parts of who we are. Yes, we are in very strange times. A lot of these, and I found this very interesting poster from Movement Matters, and I'm very grateful to them. They made my work easy. So I used it here, so I'm giving them due credit. Yes, today's pandemic, today's lockdown that we all find ourselves in has us experiencing a lot of very different emotions, different situations, different challenges. We may never have been an anxious person, and today we may be feeling anxious about things that did not bother us a few months ago or a year ago. We may be feeling alone. We may find ourselves lacking focus because there's too much to focus on. There may be more times that we are tired and we need space. And there may be times when we feel restless. And so many new emotions and situations that are making our already complex lives more difficult. So let's see where that is taking us. This is one of the most important, I would say, information that we need to understand about ourselves. That all of us have an emotional self, an emotional brain, as well as a logical self, or what we call the logical brain. And this state of equilibrium is when we are best functional and at our optimal best. When we are aware of our emotions, we know what we feel, and we are able to use that to make logical decisions. We make choices knowing how we feel. So we are in control of both the emotions as well as the choices that we are making. This is the ideal situation. And this is what we should be functioning at, especially at important times. I know, easier said than done, but it is possible. Now, what is it that happens very often, especially in the situation that we are in right now? We have a lot of sensory information that's coming to us sometimes, and we have a lot of stuff that we need to do. Sometimes it's happening at such a fast pace that we end up in this situation where everything is completely jam-packed. And that is what leaves us, the person, the parent, emotionally overwhelmed. This is a situation that happens to us sometimes. And the reason why we are all here is to find ways to handle this situation without allowing it to happen too often. So what happens when there is a traffic jam, when there is too much that we are experiencing, both emotionally, physically, mentally? There's one big confusion. What is happening at that? Let's talk about that. This is what happens. When you are emotionally overloaded, your logical self is not accessible. Think of the times that we have completely gone very, very angry and made the most foolish choices. That's because we did it when we were emotionally high-strung and we did not have our logical self in our control, in our access. Why angry? There have been times when maybe we were so happy, so emotionally ecstatic that you ended up doing something that you wouldn't have otherwise done. So emotions, any emotion, when they are too much, at that time, we really don't have too much access to our logical brain. And this is when we either flight and fight is usually the response when you are highly emotionally engaged or highly emotionally overtaken and your logical self is not in your access. What is the flip side? Flip side is, this is the freeze situation where sometimes your emotions are so high strung, you cut it out. You totally cut it out. And you make choices that do not align with how you feel. And they cannot always be the best choices, because ultimately the outcome of any choice that we make, the good or the bad of it, depends on how we feel about it. And if you've not consulted with your emotional self because it was too much and you cut it out, it's still not the best outcome. So what is the best outcome? When we can feel, we continue to feel, and we are able to logically make choices knowing how we feel. Ideal situation. Possible? Very possible. As a person, as a parent, as a parent of a child with special needs. Very possible. So let's look at it's very important for us to have our little bag of goodies, our little bag of magic tricks that help us cope with situations. Some of you must be thinking, okay, you came to this session wondering how I'm going to help you with your parenting of a child with special needs. I'm coming back to that slide where I mentioned that first you're a person, you are a parent, and this is where we first take care of you as a person. Because unless you are okay, it's very difficult to be able to give your child, whether a typical child, a neurotypical child, or a child with special needs, the best of you. I'm sure you've come across these sayings, fill your cup. Because unless you have something in your cup, you cannot share with anybody. However good a parent you want to be, first you have to take care of yourself. And you've also heard about that. When you're in an aeroplane, put the mask on, give yourself the oxygen before you reach out to help anybody, even your own child. This is your oxygen. This is your cup that you have to fill because you want to be the best parent to your child. So what are these goodies? And each one has their own way of coping. Each one of us has that thing that brings our seesaw back to our equilibrium position. Whether it is finding a possible way of venting our frustration. It could be writing, it could be dancing, it could be tearing paper, but productive, or at least not destructive. Self-soothing, cup of coffee, a cold glass of water, again, music, yoga, taking a break. Let's recognize we are human. We have to be human before we can be anything else. And we all have our thresholds. We have to recognize that. If we don't do it for ourselves, we cannot be there for our child. Deep breathing, exercises, yoga, plenty of options today to find ways to get oxygen back into your brain so that your emotions can calm down and you can access your logical brain again. Action plan. In the most difficult of situations, the most panicky of situations, the hardest of situations, first, let's recognize how we feel. Yes, we are very scared. We are up there with our emotions. And the minute you ask yourself, what am I going to do about this? You are slowly bringing that emotional side down and you are bringing the logical self up. Try it next time you're in a difficult situation. Recognize, okay, right now I'm feeling really angry. Right now I'm feeling very, very anxious and scared. Immediately ask yourself, what am I going to do about this? What are my options? And if you get stuck, but this you can do only when you can bring your emotions down first. So take care of that. Now we come to being a parent. We've taken care of ourselves, understood how important it is to have control over how we are feeling, how we are, what do we need to be okay? And now let us talk about what is the role as a parent? And the first thing that we have to remember It's not that we don't know and we don't understand. The first thing for us to remember is that we chose to have children. The children are ours because it was a choice we made. So we have a responsibility. And the first responsibility is to teach. All our children have to learn from us, whether the us is a parent, a teacher, an educator, a therapist. First, teach before you let go. Set norms. What are norms? And norms are, what is the expected behavior? What is your expectation? You have to set them. And there is no guidebook to norms. Norms come from your family values, your personal values, your situation in life, whether you are living alone, whether you're living in a joint family, whether you're living in the city, whether you're living in the suburbs or in the village. All these factors will define what are the norms in my house, what is acceptable, what is not acceptable. It's very important to be clear about them, because that is what gives children a secure environment. They know what is right by their family and what is not right by their family. And how do we reinforce those norms? By being the role models. If in your home, talking or being angry in a normal tone of voice is the norm, that is something that you would also need to do. If you shout and scream when you're angry, you cannot expect your child not to do the same when he or she is angry. So that is where you role model how you behave, what is expected in your homes. And your neighbor's norms, your neighbor's way of behaving cannot be yours. And that is something your child will pick up when you role model what is important in your home. Some of you may be thinking, how does this impact a child with special needs? It does. It is very important for us to remember one thing. Children with special needs may function differently. And that difference is harder for us to understand. A lot of our children with special needs understand us better than we understand them. And when we realize that, we will understand why this is important. I will be speaking about specific challenges that we face as parents of children with special needs. I am going to be doing that. But it's also very important to understand these points. Now, be truthful about being human. What is it? What do we mean by being human? When we say be human, it means that we have emotions. We feel happy, we feel sad, we feel angry, we have wants, we have dislikes, we have likes. So let's be truthful about them. It's very important for your child to know that you're sad, that you're angry. That's how you're feeling. And here, it is also important for your child to understand how you behave when you are feeling all those things. And coming to the next point, that you are the adult. As an adult, those are some of, we don't have the privileges of what privileges that children have of doing as we want, saying as we want. We have to keep the control. And when we keep the control, children learn from us. When we lose the control, guess who takes that control from us? Our children. And children are not yet ready to take that control. They cannot define how you should be doing things or what you should be doing. You are still teaching them. So it's very important for us to stay the adult. And this is why we first talked about being the person who knows how to keep that emotional and logical balance. And coming to the next point, listen, respect, build relationships. So important, whether it is a typical neurotypical child, a child with special needs, doesn't matter. I've been in this, in the 3 years that I've run Samatha, trust me, this has been our biggest ace. We show children respect by listening to them, letting them know that we are listening to you, whether you speak or don't speak, whether you're having a bad day or a good day. I am listening to you. And that has made such a big difference in our relationship with our students. I always tell, whether it is parents or educators, that if we force ourselves onto children, we are doing it only because we are bigger and stronger than them. And if we are doing that, we are being bullies. And we are also forgetting that few years down the line, our children are going to be, if not as much, but maybe even more bigger and stronger than us. And that is when all what you have taught will come into play. This listen, respect, and build relationships are the gems that we have today, which we should use so beautifully that when they are grown up, when they are older, they are able to use this so effectively in their lives, irrespective of their challenges, And this last point here, show trust in your child. And here again, I am reiterating, it's not just for the child who is typical, neurotypical, no challenges. I don't know who doesn't have challenges, but anyway. You show your child trust that you believe they can do it, and they make the effort. If you do not give them the chance to do it or try, whether it is using a scissor, teach them before you let go. Please let us not forget. Don't hand over a scissor to a child and say, okay, I trust you can do it and so you can cut. No, that is not what I'm talking about. Teach. and then allow them to practice little bit at a time. And that is how they start building self-esteem. I can do it. And that is a big celebration, irrespective of the challenges your child has. Now coming to, we understood, we went through a few things that as parents we need to do. Let's look at, what do our children want? What do our children need from us? Flexibility. So yes, we have family values, we have expectations, we set boundaries, we set norms. And how I explain it to parents is, these are like elastic ropes or strings that you have clear demarcations, but they are elastic, so that your child has and should and will push against that elastic. Gives them some idea of what they are understanding about themselves. But boundaries are there for a purpose. Boundaries are there because from our position as parents, we recognize these boundaries as things that keep our children safe. So even if we allow it to be flexible, we should not allow it to break. Because there again, what we give children the message is that if by pushing against the boundaries, we allow them to break it, they're going to do it for a lot of things, which will be a little hard for us later to re-establish boundaries. And every relationship has boundaries. And here it's very important for us to remember ourselves. I'm sure if you look back, your parents had boundaries, or my parents had boundaries. And today I am a different person from who my parents are because I push those boundaries. That's how I discovered who I am. And that's how you are different from your parents. Because even with family boundaries, you recognize, okay, my family boundary is here, I want to push it here. And that worked for me, so I've kept it there. Or this boundary is too far. I don't like it, so I made it closer. So flexibility is very important. Consequences. Now, consequences, you have to understand very clearly, consequences is not punishment or rewards. Punishments and rewards come with the language of, if you do this, you will get this. If you do not do this, I will do this, or I will get this, or this is what will happen to you. That's a punishment or a reward. If you get 100 marks in your maths, I will buy you a PS3 game. If you do not eat this, you will not go to play. As simple as that. Punishment. Doesn't work in the long run. Coming back to that point, you look at your own lives also. Who is the one who punishes and rewards you? Someone who's bigger and stronger than you. Doesn't work in the long run. And your relationship with your child is a lifetime relationship. better to teach children about consequences. And consequences is the natural phenomenon in life. If every day I get up at 6 o'clock to get to work at 8 o'clock, and one day I get up at 7 o'clock, what is the consequence? I'm either going to rush to work or I'm going to be late to work. Simple consequences. So that is when we teach children how what we do, the choices that we make, will define how the rest of it goes. Because children don't have foresight, right? They have very little bit of hindsight too, because they have had only so many years of experience. So when we keep getting them to focus on choices that they are making and the consequences of it, you prepare them to make better choices in life. So teaching them about consequences is important. Also allowing them to make choices is important. Unconditional love. I don't think there's any other relationship that has unconditional love like that of a parent and child. Irrespective of what the child does or doesn't do, becomes or doesn't become, there is unconditional love from a parent. But very often we forget to tell them that. And whether it is your child with challenges or whether it is your child who is atypical, neurotypical, they all need to know that they are loved. That irrespective of what they cannot do, you still value them for who they are and what they are in your life. And that's the truth. So it's good for them to know. Because this is another very, very important point. A lot of behavior issues. I know there was a question about how do we control behavior. Right? Now we have to understand that we as human beings, whether we are adults, whether we are 80 years old, 60 years old, 10 years old, 15 years old, 2-year-old, as human beings, we constantly need validation for being here. We want to know that we matter to somebody. That is attention. Now, if a child gets amazing attention for the smallest accomplishments, they will want to do more and more of it. Because they see that twinkle in your eye when they do the smallest thing that was difficult a little while ago and they've achieved a little. But if you miss that and only get overexcited and shout and anxious, highly anxious about what is troubling them or what is troubling you, that then becomes their attention. So we have to be able to, you think about it for a moment. When we say, well done, good job, I like that. This is usually the energy with which we do it. And if we suddenly see a child getting ready to throw something, let's say a plate, or runs across the road, what is the energy level? Stop, scream, pull them back. Can you see the difference in the energy? What excites me and what is not so exciting. So we have to also look at us to see what behavior are we giving energy to and what behavior is it that we should be giving energy to, which we want more of. Because your attention, your child will want and will get it one way or the other. Okay, so we've talked about being a person and how to take care of ourselves. We've talked about being a parent. What is the expectation of a parent? And what is it that children want from us? And now I'm going to come to the specific topic of children with challenges. Now, there are many, many challenges, right? So I've chosen a few which are usually some of the more common or more commonly asked or more commonly challenging questions. Okay? Now, sensory issues. This is a huge topic, but I'm just going to talk a little bit about it because sensory issues are part of a lot of what we call a comorbidity or a sometimes underlying issue or sometimes the primary issue in a lot of diagnosed disorders. Whether it is learning disabilities, whether it is ADHD, whether it is autism, whether it is Down syndrome, most of these children or most of these individuals struggle with sensory issues. Now, I'm just going to go through it quickly because there are quite a few issues. So sensory, we have 5 senses on the outside: your eyes, your nose, your tongue, that is the taste, your hearing, your skin, which tells you, which gives you sensation. These are called your far senses, gives your body or the brain, the information of the world that is around you, outside of you. There are 2 senses on the inside: your sense of balance, that's vestibular between your ears, and there is the proprioceptive sense, which is from your joints and your bones, your muscles, which tell your brain how your body is in space. Now, these 7 senses are constantly giving your brain information about who you are, where you are, what is happening. And your brain's primary duty, responsibility is to use this information to keep you safe. So what happens sometimes? So every response that we make, whether it is nodding of your head, whether it is moving around or closing the window or putting on the light, it's all your response to what your brain is telling you what you need. Now, sometimes what happens is that these systems are not working okay. The organ, your eyes, your ears may be in perfect condition, but the message that is going from the eye to the brain, or from the ear to the brain, or from your skin to the brain may be impacted. That is, your neural pathways may be impacted. So the brain is getting a different message from what is actually the truth or what is actually happening. So either it could be getting more of a sensation than actually it is. Like, I have a student who can hear the fan rotating, the fan sound. If you can imagine that sound the child can hear, he can hear the tree moving, he can hear my voice is shouting. Can you imagine the cacophony of sounds he's hearing? Which is not the same for me and you. That is hypersensitivity. Hyposensitivity is not getting enough feedback, getting less than what is actually happening. So those are the seekers, because our brain always wants that which makes you feel comfortable. So they go seeking. If you see the seekers are those who want to hug, want to bite things, want to keep chewing things, want to keep holding things, come close to you to hear things. Some of them want to smell things and don't feel comfortable until they do. So unless, when we see behaviors that are different, we have to ask ourselves, is there a sensory issue? Now, if there is a sensory issue, is there a solution to it? Yes, there is. There are therapies, there are exercises that help build those neural pathways that are missing, strengthen those that are weak, and calm those that are hypersensitive. But unless we do that, the child will not be able to pay any attention to what is happening on the outside, because their first primary responsibility will be to take care of themselves. The brain keeps telling them, you're not safe, you need this, you're not safe, run away from this, you are not safe, this will hurt you. That child will not be able to sit and listen to you teaching him 2 + 2. So this is a primary challenge, and these are challenges that need to be addressed before anything else. At Samatha, we do a couple of therapies which are part of our daily sessions, because we first take care of this before we attempt teaching a child. Lack of eye contact. Now, this is a very common concern when it comes to children with autism on the spectrum, right? A lot of times we make it our mission to teach the child to look into our eyes. We have to understand why they don't look into your eyes, right? Here we have to understand whether it is a challenge for them or it is for us. We feel, we as in the neurotypical, feel very uncomfortable when someone is talking to you and they are not looking at you, or you're talking to someone and they are not looking at you. But looking at someone is not the guaranteed sign that they are paying attention. It is not. Think about yourself. How many times you have sat in a conversation looking at the person, but your mind is 100 miles away? Very often. I know I've done it in college. I've sat and looked at my professor's face. The professor has thought I'm paying the most attention, and I most probably be dreaming about something else. Lack of eye contact. Children on the spectrum have trouble with the different kinds of facial expressions that we have, which sometimes contradict the words that come out of our mouth. So I remember seeing this very interesting video where a child was saying, if you make me look at you, I can't hear what you're saying. So we have to figure out whether, one is if they are paying attention. We have other ways to find out if they have heard what we are saying. Is it important for them to look at us? Or is it important for them to pay attention to what we are trying to communicate? So again, there's a lot more in this. We really don't have too much of time. So I'm going to go ahead. So repetitive behavior, stimming. Again, a common factor with seen among children with special needs. Seen with children on the spectrum with autism. What is stimming? Stimming is a repetitive behavior. Is a repetitive behavior that actually they do to calm themselves. But tell me truthfully, haven't you seen so many people who either play with their pen when they are thinking, or move their leg when they are concentrating on something, or they're really thinking about what you're saying? So many times we do see that, and we don't see it we don't think it is strange, because that person doesn't have a diagnosis of autism. So what is stimming? Stimming, and those on the spectrum, we have to understand they function best when there is some order in their thinking. There is some order that helps them stay calm. And if this is stimming, and there are different children who do different things. Some of them keep looking at a moving object. Some of them move their fingers. Some of them flap. Some of them, there are many different, some of them use words too repetitively. So if the purpose is to help them self-regulate, to calm down, do you think we should be stopping it? My answer would be no, unless it is an action that is causing them hurt, that is harming them or somebody else around them. In which case, you need to get them to move from this behavior to something else that can still help them calm down, but doesn't hurt them or anybody else. Echolalia. Echolalia is repeating what they've heard, repeating what they've said. Echolalia is again a very common feature amongst the children with on the spectrum with autism, right? Now, there again, please let us understand echolalia can also be a stimming. Echolalia can also be because they are trying to figure out what they've heard, figure out what it is that you're asking them. So they are repeating the question to themselves, repeating till they get a better idea. But we usually don't give them enough time for that. Right? Now, echolalia does help them figure out things. If they are doing it to calm down, then that is more of a stimming than helping them with their language. Right? Now, here, those who have echolalia and it is helping them process the language, speech therapy would be a good option, because they can help build that process of, getting faster at language processing. Limited or no speech. Yes. This is a challenge in children with Down syndrome, autism, delayed developmental delays, sometimes learning disabilities, but not always common there. Now, we have to understand, yes, speech is important because it's easiest understood by everybody. But as human beings, research has found that we communicate just 7% of what we want or feel or think with words. 93% of what we communicate is through our actions, our expressions, our tone, our body language. So when we get so hassled when there is no speech, we are ignoring so many other ways that our children communicate. And it's important for us to remember that there are other ways that they are communicating. Coming back to what is it that we need to do when we face challenges? Keep calm, stay in control. Because The other option is we lose control and we don't use our logical mind to make a choice. We'll have more to deal with after the situation than if we can keep our calm and stay in control. And we talked about how we can keep our calm and stay in control. Your child to calm down before you can first make sure your child is safe. Second, calm down, because unless the child calms down, the child's emotions are also way up there. You cannot speak to his logical mind when he's screaming and shouting and biting and hitting or crying. The child has to calm down before you can have a logical conversation with the child, or remind him or her what it is that he or she should be doing or should not be doing. But first, the emotions have to calm down. Listen to the communication. I heard a very interesting talk the other day, and the lady made a very interesting statement. How you feel in that situation is how your child is feeling. So if you are getting angry with what your child is doing, it's most likely your child is also feeling angry about what he or she is going through. Think about it. Address the sensory needs. Trust me, unless you address the sensory needs, it's practically impossible to get through to the child. And if you want to make a difference to how your child is feeling, how your child is accessing whatever is in his life or her life, this is the primary thing we need to look at. Here are some ways that you can help your child cool down or calm down, or again, thanks to Movement Matters, I've taken their picture, right? Get them to breathe. Hold them and get them to breathe. Remind them, use your words, show them, let's breathe, calm down, calm down. Movement helps. If they can crawl, if they can jump, if they can use a trampoline, something, movement helps. It gives oxygen to the brain. Guided imagery. What is guided imagery? Giving them a picture of something that calms them down. Okay, calm down. Here, drink some water. See, it's nice and cool. Touch the water. It's cold. Calm down. Sometimes chewing. Again, feedback. It's like a stimming kind of feedback, a continuous feedback that gives the brain the time to calm down. Movement, crawling, movement. Crawling is very interesting because crawling is the one activity where you do the bilateral coordination, where your left and the right brain is coordinated. Music, it seems to be the universal feel-good factor, whether you're an adult or a child. So these are some strategies that you can use to help your child cool down, calm down, come down from that emotional high before you can access his or her logical thinking. Sleep, very important. To do. Children feel safe. See, please understand, a lot of children with challenges, the primary challenge is in speech. When we have a doubt, we ask questions. When you do not agree with something, you argue a point. You have the access to words and language to share how you feel, share how you think. Our children with challenges do not have that privilege. So a schedule kind of gives them a safe feeling. I know this is going to happen afterwards. So I'm okay. And if it needs to change, please prepare them in advance. Screen time, big time, it's a topic by itself. A lot of times we give them the mobile, the tab, the computer, so that they are engaged. But trust me, the residual and the long-term effect is a lot. Someone compared screen time to a sugar addict. Sugar addicts, or what sugar does to our body, we peak, feel really good, and then the effect also is very fast in coming down. And then you need another dose. Yeah? Screen time is the same. What is the difference between attending a class online and screen time? What is the difference? A class, like even a one-to-one class, or maybe with a few children, is very different from screen time where they are playing a game, or they are watching a video, or they are accessing YouTube. What is the difference? The game is high energy, high noise, high speed, high colors, light. Can you imagine the impact on the brain? So that brain is on one high. So when you take away the screen, it's like a withdrawal symptom. You get reactions and responses that sometimes surprise you. And we immediately hand it back to them because we cannot deal with that. This is a very difficult one. If you're giving into screen time, I would suggest take it away as much as possible, because there's so much else that they can do without the screen time. Physical work, again, oxygen to the brain, energy. Sensory, how is it that you take care of the sensory needs, right? One is, of course, some of the therapies that we use. A lot of movement helps with sensory issues. Playing with water. Ragi, I found that immensely therapeutic. So instead of using sand in a tray for a child to play with, whether it is with your hands, with your feet, a tray of ragi, the seeds, was awesome because you get the same sensory feedback and you don't have the dirt and the unhealthy factors involved with sand. Maida paste, again, very therapeutic, extremely therapeutic, where you cook the maida with the water and it becomes like a paste. And there's so much you can do with it. And it is so calming. Massages. So a lot of therapies, if you notice, involve massaging of your, nerve endings, the places that trigger the nerve, this thing in the brain. Your palms, the soles of your feet are all full of nerve endings. So you keep them massages, deep pressure, the whole body pressure. Someone who has issues with proprioceptive sense needs that feedback to the body that you exist. Swinging for the vestibular. Anything that brings on a head rush. Hanging down from a swing or on the exercise ball where the head is below the knee level helps a lot. It's oxygen rush to the brain. This is one of the biggest suggestions I could give you. is that choose your battles. There are some very important things that you need to address. Some can wait. Choose your battles. Keep your child safe, everyone else safe. Behavior that helps him or her become more of an individual in society than someone who gets isolated from society. So choose your battles. Yes, so this is where I've finished with my presentation. Amal, is there anything that you'd like? So this is about Samatha.